Greetings, fellow detectives. Wizard Kitten here, bringing you a new video in my series Building Nancy Drew in The Sims 4. Today we are going to be doing a build from Nancy Drew the Silent Spy. I have already done a build for this game of one of the other locations, and so I'll be sure to link that in a card up in the corner. I built the 10 Raven pub from the Silent Spy because it has always irked me so much that we have this big, beautiful, gorgeous pub that Nancy just can't go into at all. It's such a tease. It's like this would have been such a fantastic place to get a sense of Scotland and Scottish culture and pub life, and Nancy just doesn't get to go inside. So it was very important to me to rectify that as soon as possible, so I redid that pub build, and it's honestly one of my favorites, so I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. But with all that said, I am now doing a build of a building that we do actually get to go into in the Silent Spy. And that is Moira's cabin? House? Home? Whatever you would call this. It's not quite a cabin, it's not quite a cottage, though I guess it's leaning more on the cottage side of things, which is partially why I wanted to build this location, because The Sims 4 Cottage Living is coming out very soon, and I am beyond excited for Cottage Living. I have been devouring all of the Game Changer content. I have been reading and watching everything I possibly can. I'm getting very excited for that pack, and I don't have it in my game yet. Because it's not out yet, it hasn't been released. And so I wanted to do something that sort of had a cottage type vibe, but I didn't want to build a full-on cottage because I don't have all of the amazing things in that pack yet. So I thought Moira's house would be kind of a nice compromise in that area. Her house does have some cottagey type vibes, and then at the same time it really is not a cottage at all. I don't even really know how to describe the look of Moira's place. And perhaps those of you that maybe live in the UK, I know we have some fellow detectives that live in the United Kingdom, live in Australia, places outside of the US, and you can perhaps enlighten me on what on earth this style of house is, beyond just being kind of like cute and homey, because that's kind of the style that I get from the house. It's cottage adjacent. And so I was really enjoying making it, even though I was really pining to make a cottage and I don't have cottage living yet. But I really enjoyed making Moira's house and turning it into kind of a more vibrant space than we get in the game. I always thought that Moira's home needed a little bit of a facelift, because honestly in the game it's kind of dark, it's a little bit sad, like there's no light, the furniture, it doesn't feel very personal. Like there are some personal things in there, but it doesn't seem like a super, I don't know, joyful, light, cute kind of home, and I think it has the potential to be that, and that could perhaps be a reflection of Moira's character. I mean, when we meet her in the game, she's not exactly in a super light, joyful place, which is completely understandable, but I see so much potential in this house and for Moira that I wanted to give it to her in this rendition of the Sims 4 build. So the inside is quite faithful to the game. I feel like I was able to get pretty much all of the furniture in exactly the right place. The kitchen I changed a little bit. I made it slightly smaller so it actually kind of like fit in with the house and the floor plan, the way everything looks. The living room ends up being kind of massive, and the bedroom ends up being quite small. And then there's a pretty sizable bathroom. It does have space for laundry in it. I didn't happen to put laundry in it because I was just really drawn to using a big giant tub, but we'll see that in a little while. Currently, we are working on this main room, and this is the only room that Nancy actually sees when she comes to visit Moira. So we have a kitchen, a little dining room space, a big old living room, and a bunch of storage space. We also have this closet that Nancy hides in, and we don't see the bedroom or the bathroom. I imagine that this is just a one-bedroom home, and so that's what I did. I decided to put it and kind of extend the hallway where the closet is, where Nancy hides. So I figured that at the front there would be a bedroom, and then I added an extension on the back for the bathroom. And I think the floor plan actually ended up working quite well. I like how it turned out. I think it looks a lot like the game. I think it feels very similar to what the game kind of portrays as what this house is supposed to look and feel like, while also still being kind of like a cute little functional space in The Sims 4, which is good because I wanted to be able to use this particular home in my save file. I decided to build it in Windenburg on the island neighborhood that has the very, very small lot. So I believe this is only a 20 by 20 lot. It's very tiny, which I think suits the cabin well. I mean, it's a very small little cabin, cottage, house, whatever we're deciding to call it. I spent forever trying to figure out the tile to use in this kitchen, like ages, because Moira has this really beautiful, there's lots of like green and yellow notes, and then it's primarily white. So I was hoping to use some of the tile, the beautiful tile that we got with the Oasis kit, the Oasis Courtyard kit, but none of them were tall enough because this whole house is on platforms. And this whole house is on platforms so that I could do kind of the entrance on the outside of the house the way that it actually looks when Nancy walks up to it, because Moira has kind of this two-leveled sort of platform entrance into the house. So I couldn't get a tile that was quite right. However, I do think this one is a nice little compromise. Kind of gets the same vibe across. And I didn't clutter up the kitchen too much. I really just put items in the same place where they were in the game. This also makes sure that the kitchen is still functional, so there is still an open counter space that can be used for your Sims to cook on. And now we're working on the massive living room, which has kind of a random little cacophony of furniture and different kind of wood tones, which makes sense. I mean, that's very realistic. Honestly, when you think about most houses, very rarely do most people have the ability to make sure that all of their wood tones and all of their furniture match. You pretty much have to buy an entire set at the same time in order to manage something like that. And not a lot of people have that option. So I imagine Moira has kind of pieced all of these furniture items together over the years. I was very happy whenever I could find something that looked very similar to the furniture that she has in game, like this beautiful blue chair from Cats and Dogs. I absolutely love that chair. It's one of the only, honestly, like couch and chairs that actually looks comfortable in The Sims 4, because my favorite couches are ones that have really big arms, honestly, that have like really big cushy arms that you can really get really comfy and cozy in. Very few of our Sims couches look like that. And these Cats and Dog ones get kind of close, so I decided to go with that. I decided to also add in an extra couch. Moira only has one, but that makes the space look very, very small. So I gave her another one. I used a bigger coffee table than they use in the game. And honestly, the reason there's so much empty space is because of just video game navigation. So Nancy needs to be able to go into the center of the room and have a full 360 radius where she can turn around and look at things, which means that there's furniture in areas, or there's a lack of furniture in areas where Nancy needs to be able to stand. But because that's not the case in The Sims, I filled it in nicely with this extra couch, give her a nice big coffee table, fill it in. Very happy to find a wardrobe that looks very similar to the one that Nancy can hide in, similarly to the closet. Usually my main goal when I try to do recreations is to find the interactable objects and definitely make sure that those are there, and then I'll kind of fill it in with extra decorations and stuff like I'm doing on this coffee table. I was trying to imagine what kinds of hobbies Moira would have, and I figured she would be a knitter. Which is nice because we have the nifty knitting stuff pack, but she just seems like, based on the clothes she's wearing too, a lot of it seems like she maybe makes herself scarves. I don't think she leaves her house very often. I think she's quite a homebody. We kind of get that vibe from her in the game. So I gave her some knitting supplies, and I also really fleshed out her garden because I imagine that she spends a lot of time in her garden. And honestly, when we get up to Moira's house, it kind of looks, when we're in the game, in the Silent Spy, it kind of looks a little bit like sad and kind of blank and bare. And I'm in that cottage vibe, you guys. I'm ready for cottage living. So I was very inspired to give Moira a much more lush and a much more overgrown type of garden space. So we will do that after we finish the inside, after everything has been taken care of. One item that I do wish that we had in The Sims 4 is fireplace decor. So like fireplace pokers and things like that, or logs that you can put in the fire just sitting to the side, because Moira has those in the game, but we do not have those in The Sims 4 at all. So I just decided to go with some extra storage clutter and stuff like that. But That would be nice to have in a game. I wonder if we'll ever get that. We'll ever get some fireplace clutter. So this is going to be Moira's little bedroom. It's very small, very tiny. She doesn't even have a dresser in here, so I imagined that the closet just outside of the bedroom, as well as the big wardrobe out in the living room, kind of function as her clothing storage space, and the bedroom is purely just for sleeping. I really wasn't able to fit much decoration in there besides a couple of side tables and a bed, and I ended up just putting in a laundry basket and another one of these cute little chairs, just kind of in the same color. I tried to keep the color scheme in the bedroom similar to the color scheme in the rest of the house. It seems like Moira tends to go for more dark, neutral colors. It almost has sort of like a 70s kind of vibe when you think about the colors. So that's what I tried to do in the bathroom and in the bedroom. So we're moving on to the bathroom now. And again, it's a pretty big bathroom. It's the exact same size as the bedroom, so you could easily fit a stackable laundry in here, which I think was my initial intention when I was building the bathroom so big. I was like, well, we might as well put a laundry in here as well. But when I started working on the floor plan, I really wanted to have a nice big bathtub just under the window. I felt like that placement worked really nicely, and having the shower in the corner worked really nicely, and then adding in the laundry machines would have just kind of thrown off the symmetry a little bit, would have made it feel a little bit more cluttered, and then the bathtub wouldn't have its moment. I really want the bath to have its moment. I feel like Moira deserves really nice, really calming baths, so I wanted to make sure she could have that, and that's why I gave her this little cushion with the little bath accoutrements on it. I figured that's another thing that Moira probably does as a hobby, is she uses the spa day feature where she can add fun little things to her bath, and she can take nice, soothing rose petal baths or oatmeal baths. That's how Moira spends her time. She knits, she takes fancy baths, and then she gardens in her garden and sits outside. She probably reads in her garden, I would imagine. That's kind of what my hope was. There's a nice little sitting area that's going to be out there and a nice little bench. But now we are actually moving on to making the garden, and the primary way I did the garden was by using a lot of items from the debug menu. So if you go up into cheats, if you hit Shift Control C, you type in bb.show hidden objects and bb.show live edit objects, then you get access to this debug category when you search for debug in the search function in the build and buy catalog, which gives you access to so many more things, which is really exciting. I still honestly don't understand why a lot of these things that end up in debug are organized the way they are. Like, I really, really wish that I could just not have to pull out these tiles individually and place them like this, these stones. It would be awesome if I could copy and edit them like you can with any other item that's in the build catalog. But alas, such things are not meant for us in this world, so I placed each of these stones individually. I wanted there to just be a nice pathway around to the backyard, because again, I felt like the one that we get in the game in the Silent Spy is just so barren and sad, and it needs more life to it. So I make this nice pathway. I fill the whole lot up with lots and lots of bushes and flowers, most of which are from the debug menu and some of which are from the regular just plants catalog. And I gave her a super lush garden, which I figured she would enjoy. I figure she deserves that. It always helps me to try and find, based on the world that I'm building in, the plants that are in that debug catalog. So like right now I'm searching specifically for plants that are from Get Together, because I'm building this in Windenburg and I wanted the house to feel like it belongs as part of the landscape. And so I'm plopping around a lot of these bushes with the yellow flowers, because you can see those around the outside of the house as well. Lots of like the tall grass, and then a bunch of these bushes on the side. This right side of the house is definitely very overgrown. It's probably the most overgrown part of the house, but again, that's kind of what I was going for. I wanted it to look really, really bushy and really full. I use a lot of these blue flowers, and that kind of ends up being the main color that we go for, is blue. And that's based off of the flowers that we do see in Moira's house in the Silent Spy. She does have some low-lying blue flowers at the front, so that was my goal with that. Pretty minimal with the trees, however, because one, it's a super small lot and a lot of the trees would take up a lot of the space, but also just based on where I built this, there's already quite a few trees around the lot itself, and so when you're actually playing in this space, it looks like the trees are already kind of part of it. I just added this one in the corner, this more bushy one. Landscaping is really tricky in The Sims, honestly. It takes a lot of dedication and trial and error, searching around for things in the debug menu, finding plants that go well together, that look okay. Like these bushes, I love. There's versions of them for Granite Falls and for Windenburg that are very similar, but they're so big, and it's like, how can I sneak these in here and make it look overgrown without making it look too like messy? It needs to be a purposeful overgrown kind of thing. And that's what I did with these blue flowers too. It's like, okay, how can I get more flowers in here without making it look ridiculously busy? Generally, the idea, or what seems to work for me, is to take flowers, like to select a few kinds of flowers. Don't just put a bunch of random ones. Kind of select a pattern or like a palette that you're going for, and then just put a bunch of those around. So that's what ends up happening with like most of the blue flowers, these yellow bushes that are everywhere, the bigger bushes that are everywhere, these hydrangeas that I kind of placed everywhere. It helps it feel a little bit more cohesive in my mind, and I enjoyed that. So yeah, I hope you guys like the garden. You'll have to let me know what you think. You'll have to tell me if this feels like a genuine reproduction of Moira's cabin. Do you think it gets the vibe? Do you think this garden is something that she would enjoy? Does the landscaping speak to you? Is it a nice little garden that you would enjoy as well? Or does it look too overgrown? What are your thoughts? I'd be very curious to hear what you think about that. Landscaping is one of those things that I want to keep getting better and better at. It's one of those things that adds so much to a build that is tricky. So practice makes perfect. The more you landscape, the better it gets, in my opinion. So it's also a good kind of, I guess, practice for cottage living, because I'm just realizing now that I'm going to have to do a lot of landscaping for cottage living, which I'm excited for. I'm ready for that. I want to do a big apple orchard and pumpkin patch once I get my hands on cottage living with like a petting zoo, and I'm going to put that on one of the 64 by 64 lots here in Windenburg as well, so it's going to be very close to this little build in my little save file that I've been working on, which is also very exciting to think about. I'm so ready to get to have pumpkins in the game, and llamas and cows and chickens and watermelons and just all of these cool things that we haven't gotten to have in the game before. Canning, kids cooking, kids baking, just all of these really exciting things. I am so pumped. But we are just finishing up the garden here now. I'm filling it in with a bunch of potted plants, a nice little sitting area, a bench. Again, I feel like Moira likes to garden, so most of these pots are things that she's planted herself. And then I do, of course, put in a couple of the little baskets where she can plant her own things. But we're coming up on the screenshots here very soon. Thank you so much for watching, fellow detectives. And as always, please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more Nancy Drew and Sims 4 content. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you soon.